Hello and welcome to Board Game Gumbo. Today we're unboxing Star Wars Dark Side Rising by the OP. This is a game for 2 to 4 players that plays in about 45 minutes. So there are several games in the Rising series by the OP. They share a lot of the same mechanics, they're just different thematically. I think the first one that at least I was familiar with was Thanos Rising. And obviously in that one you're playing as Marvel superheroes going against Thanos. They also have a Harry Potter version called Death Eaters Rising, and I believe they're doing a Batman version. This one, the Star Wars version, unfortunately is a little difficult to get a hold of in the States, but you can get it from overseas distribution. So here is our rulebook. Dark Side Rising is a cooperative game for up to 4 players. You are playing as heroes of the Resistance, trying to stop the Empire from building the Death Star. And of course, Darth Vader is out there essentially just trying to give you a bad day. It's a dice rolling game, primarily, kind of a Yahtzee style, where on your turn you have 3 attempts to roll dice, and you're going to be using those dice to either defeat enemies, members of the Imperial forces, or to recruit allies. There are a couple of different ways that the game ends. If the Death Star is fully built, you lose. If you lose a certain number of allies, you lose. And then if one team is completely destroyed, you will also lose. So here is our Death Star board. And this is one-sided. It's just to represent the Death Star. It doesn't really have a ton of function in the game, but it's cool because it's the Death Star. We should have... In here, we're going to have boards that will go around this one. So let's go ahead and take a look at those real quick. So in Thanos Rising, these are the Infinity Cubes, or the Infinity Stones, I should say, that Thanos is trying to collect. In this game, the Death Star is trying to activate its different systems. So it's shielding, for instance. Once it has 4 tokens on it, it's going to flip over. And then for the rest of the game, it's going to have a special ability for the rest of the game. So these will just slot into the board like so. The Death Star board is just slightly warped, unfortunately. It's nice and thick, but there is a slight warp into it. So I'll probably have to work on that. And then we've got the other systems, the super laser, the reactor, another reactor, hyperdrive, and the targeting field. So again, these essentially work the same way. You can see that they require a different number of tokens to activate them, but once they activate them, they'll have a special ability. So that's the Death Star. Here we have sort of the different planetary systems that you can go to either attack Imperial forces or to recruit allies. So this is sort of the main board of the game, and that'll sit right in the center. We have our Darth Vader figure that's going to sit in the middle of that board, and he's going to rotate between these 3 areas, or at least sometimes he's going to rotate. So he's going to sit in here. The little blue arrow almost tells you what area he's facing, and then over the course of the game he might rotate to essentially do damage to different areas of the board. We've got some more cardboard tokens here. These just represent the 4 factions in the game. So whenever you start, you're going to choose a faction, and that faction is going to have a starting hero. And these tokens will just be to represent what area you're going to in your turn. So on your turn, you're going to put out one of these tokens into one of the 3 areas, and that'll show where your character and your allies are at. That's important because Darth Vader is obviously out there looking to do damage to people, and he may damage you if he ends up in your area. We also have some more punchboard here, or not punchboard, I should say. It's already been punched out, but cardboard tokens. And these are just alliance tokens. These are little bonuses that you can get throughout the course of the game for doing damage to Imperials or things like that. And when you flip them over, they give you things. So this gives you 1 extra of this icon on your turn. We have our dice, and there are 2 types of dice. So here are the hero dice. As you can see, there are several different colors. They each specialize in a particular symbol. So the red one, I think, is the combat symbol. And so you'll see that there's a lot of those on that dice. There's even a 2, but there's also the other symbols in the game. So this sort of map symbol and whatever that is. And then finally the symbol here. And so whenever you gain allies or you're starting heroes, they will allow you to roll a certain number of dice of a particular color on your turn. Then we have Darth Vader's dice. So the first thing you do on your turn is you take your token for whatever faction you're playing and you're going to put it out into one of the 3 areas. And then you're going to roll Darth Vader's dice and see what he does. So this die just activates certain aspects of the Death Star. If they are already full or flipped over, they will activate their special ability. If they aren't activated yet, it'll just put a token on that location. But this one will activate Darth Vader himself. So he can move left, rotate right. He has this symbol, which just means he rolls this dice again. And then he has this symbol, which he doesn't move, but he activates everybody. Basically, he activates all the bad guys. You'll place your character first, where you want to go. And then you'll roll Darth Vader's dice and resolve them. So he would rotate to the right, and you'd put 1 token on the yellow system for the Death Star. And then you have the opportunity to roll your dice and acquire allies or deal damage to Imperials, as long as they're within the area that you went to. We have tokens here. These are pretty straightforward. Red tokens are to denote damage on either Imperials or ally units, and yellow tokens mark when the Death Star different systems get upgraded or closer to completion, or however you want to consider it. A few things we got left in here are the starting locations. So our base cards here, you're just going to choose one at the beginning of the game. There are 4. They're going to tell you what hero you start with. So you start with Cassian if you pick this faction. You start with Hera if you're green, Leia if you're purple, and Luke if you're red. They are double-sided. The backside is just sort of a turn order summary. So kind of a cheat sheet. So it tells you what hero you start with, tells you what token you have, and your starting dice. So Luke starts off rolling 4 red dice, and then the other factions roll some combination of dice. And you also have a team ability. So this is something that Luke can do. If you roll 6 or more of that icon on your opening roll, you may add damage to an Imperial. So just do a free point of damage, which is pretty nice. And then you have the team abilities for the other leaders. So you're going to put this in front of you, and then based off of which one of those you start with, you're going to go find your hero, which is going to be in this deck of cards. So here's Cassian. Let's see, let's go and grab all the heroes real quick. Okay, so here's all your starting heroes. They have health on the right, how much health they can take. This is what you use to acquire them on your turn. The reason they have these is because if you say somebody doesn't play with the red faction, then Luke will actually be in the deck. So they still have a way to acquire them if you don't start with them. And then they have a special power on the bottom as well. And that's all 4 of the heroes. The rest of them, or rest of the cards, are either ally cards of the 4 colors or Imperial cards. So Imperial cards are going to get shuffled into the main deck. They'll come out just like the ally cards. And essentially, throughout the course of the game, you're trying to defeat a certain number of these, depending on how hard you want the game to be. It looks like there's 11. So I believe the base game is defeating 7 out of the 11. But if you want to make it really difficult, you got to defeat all of them. So they have health as well. You can only do 1 point of damage on a turn, but they have multiple health totals. This is what it takes to do damage to them. And then this is their ability if they activate. They activate if Vader either rolls that helmet symbol on his die, or if he rotates to an area, he'll also activate them. So these cards will be shuffled up, and then 3 will be dealt to each area. So Jeddah here will have 3 cards in that area. And if you decide to go to Jeddah on your turn, like this faction symbol shows, then these are the only 3 cards that you can interact with. You're going to take whatever dice you're rolling on your turn. So say I was rolling all the red dice, I would roll them, and then I have to assign at least one of them, although I can't assign multiple, to one of these 3 cards. So let's say I want to try to get Agent Callus here. I would assign probably this die to him. So that die is now locked into him. I could assign more, but I'm going to choose not to. So now I have a second roll, and I'll assign that one to him, and then I have a third roll. And unfortunately, that doesn't give me enough to acquire him, and there's not enough left over to acquire anything else, so that would be my whole turn. But if you do acquire cards, they just go in front of you, and sometimes they add dice, so they'll add another die. For instance, this one does add a die, but only if you're at a location with an Imperial. You get to roll an extra black die. Sometimes they add abilities that you can activate on your turn. But that's essentially it. That's the whole game. You're trying to either defeat a certain number of the Imperials from the main deck, or you're going to lose if the Death Star is ever activated or enough allies get destroyed. And that's it. That's everything you get with Dark Side Rising from the OP.